Struggle nasal breathing because it don't feel free? Let's see if the mute works with your boy Big Z. What's up, you beautiful, sexy, outstanding people? Dr. Zach Couples here, and we're gonna see if the mute can help you with nasal breathing. Folks, nasal breathing, incredibly important for your health and well-being. If you can nasal breathe, that's going to increase nitric oxide production because there's a bunch of nitric oxide produced every time you take a breath of air in through your nose. That can help reduce blood pressure, among many other things. Also, the better nasal breathing you can do, the less accessory muscle tension you'll have. Accessory muscles are your neck muscles, some of your pecs, things of that nature. Those bad boys will kick in when you have to utilize a mouth breathing strategy, which is a more stressful strategy. Also too, the air that you take in through your nose is humidified, is better protected against pathogens. Therefore, ipso facto, it is incredibly important for you to be able to breathe through your nose. But folks, what if you struggle doing that? Maybe you feel congested breathing in through your nose, and that makes it really tough. You might feel restricted on one side versus the other, and that may make you more predisposed to mouth breathing, which has many negative health implications. What if you have something structurally that's preventing you from breathing through your nose? That, folks, is what we're gonna try to sift through by utilizing the mute device, which has a wonderful tagline of breathe more, snore less, and sleep better. I've never used this before, so we're gonna unbox this to see if it works. Before we dive into why I chose to utilize this particular piece of technology, brief tidbit about my backstory. I must confess, I struggle with nasal breathing, chronic mouth breather, something I've been working on, and I've done a bunch of things to try to make that happen. Growing up, I had lots of colds, felt congested every single winter, and my mom yelled at me when I was a kiddo for breathing through my mouth. Little did she know that there were a lot of structural issues that impeded my capability to doing that. Namely, having a narrower palate and a smaller facial profile. AKA, you can see when you look at me from the side that my mandible is sitting a little bit further back compared to my maxilla, though it has gotten better, stay tuned. But because of that, having a low resting tongue posture and a tongue tie, as well as some nasal restrictions, AKA a deviated septum, it was a wonderful cascade that made me more predisposed to mouth breathing. And over the years, I've done a ton of different treatments to see if I could mitigate that. One of the things that I've done nasally is I've had a septoplasty with a turbinate reduction. For those of you who don't know, the septum is the middle piece of cartilage in your nose, and the turbinates are these structures that basically help reduce the resistance of air going in through your nose. And they provide a lot of different benefits, ranging from humidifying the air, slowing nasal airflow, among other things. My septum was deviated to one side, which led one of my nostrils to being blocked. And the turbinates were enlarged, which again restricted my ability to breathe nasally. So I had a surgical procedure that shaved the septum down so it was a little bit more centered, which could open up the nasal passage. And then I had the turbinates reduced or shrunken a little bit so they weren't as inflamed, which could again allow me to pull more air in. And after I had it done, it was like I could take so much more air in through my nose. It was an incredible situation. And the really cool thing about it, within 2 weeks, my resting heart rate dropped 10 beats per minute. And folks, I was doing tons of cardiovascular work, anything I could do to drop my resting heart rate. 2 weeks, 10 beats, under 60, what you gonna do about it? It was incredible. And I reaped the benefits for a very long period of time. Until after a while, I found it much more difficult to get the same amount of air in through my nose. Felt more congested, nowhere near as bad as I used to be, as I used to get colds on a regular basis. That still has decreased. My resting heart rate is still low. But what I've noticed now is that I have to work really hard to breathe in through my nose. It feels resisted and restricted. I use a saline rinse 2 times a day to see if I can clear that up, and that helps quite a bit. Other treatments that I've tried saline rinses with a little bit of success there. I've tried some steroids, which helped tremendously, but it was temporary. I've had a tongue tie release to be able to better get my tongue up to the roof of my mouth, which can open up the airway. And right now I'm currently undergoing some palatal expansion with Crozet appliance to help increase more room for my tongue. I've done all of these things and my sleep has improved drastically because I was struggling with that. But the difficulty to breathe nasally still persists. I still find myself when I'm working at the computer, or if I'm hiking, or if I'm just congested with some food for whatever reason. Nasal breathing becomes work, it's loud, and I can't deal with that. And with the recommendation of my wonderful myofunctional therapist, Melissa Mugno, she suggested that we try the mutes. And there's a really good reason why she recommended that I try the mutes. First, we have to look at what your nose should do when you breathe in. You're gonna see my colleague here right in front of you. And normally when you breathe in through your nose, the nasal passages should expand and get bigger. That allows you to intake more air, therefore you don't have any resistance. Life is good. How's that working for your boy though? If you watch me breathe through my nose, you can see that the sides of my nose cave in. This is gonna make breathing in through my nose a lot more difficult. The mute, hopefully, is going to help me keep my nasal passages open while I'm breathing through my nose. And so we're gonna see if this works. So let's go ahead to the unboxing spot. Now folks, when you see the packaging, your first thought might be, is it ribbed for her pleasure? No, it's not, folks. You would not pick this up in the family planning section. It is actually something that I ordered off of good old Amazon, and I really like the logo. You can kind of see as we go to the boxed section down here. The logo is pretty cool. It's got a couple dots, says breathe more. It says breathe more, snore less, sleep better. I elected to buy the trial pack. They said you should get that first because you gotta know how big your nostrils are and what is gonna be the appropriate size. So let's pull this out and see what we got. So the first thing is we'll unbox this and see what we got going on. And what we have is, ooh, nice. We got some important information on fitting. Comes in a nice 3-part package. That's kind of what they look like right there. I'll beam it into the light. And it looks like we have a small, medium, large with some instructions about. So basically, here's what my plan is, folks. Today, we're going to size me up. We'll recheck and see if we can get a comparison in terms of, am I still getting the collapse in my nose? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give these a fair shot for a week's time. And the times that I plan on wearing them are while I sleep, while I'm working at the computer and my desk, and if I do any hiking or physical activity, I might mess with them there. And we're just gonna see subjectively how things are different. We'll also look at my Oura Ring data, is what I use as my sleep tracker. I don't expect major changes with that, just because my sleep quality's been pretty good, but we'll also look at subjective reports of sleep and see what happens. All right, and it looks like we have a small, medium, and large. Definitely don't think I'm a small. Looking at the size of these bad boys, I could be a medium. That's the one that I'm gonna start with first. All right, let's just look at what this looks like. So you can see, as I bring it close to the camera, that's what it looks like. Right there, it's got like a base, and then these two ridge points go up into the nostrils, it looks like. And they have lovely instructions imprinted on what you need to do to fit it. So the first step, one, hold the bridge with the loops facing towards you and the paddles away from you. So the loops are these circular objects right here. You can see them better from this angle. So those are the loops, those are the paddles. So it's going to go that way on my nose. So I'm going to hold it here, just like so. And the paddles away from you. The image is how it should look if you're standing in front of the mirror or in front of you fine folks. Gently place the loops in first and tilt the bridge upwards towards the tip of your nose as you insert it. Mute has been designed to follow the natural angle inside the nose. The moment of truth, folks. Oh, how does this go up? Well, it goes all the way. I think it's a perfect fit. Mute has been designed to follow the natural angle of the nose. Mute should sit still all the way inside the nose with only the bridge showing and spanning across the top of the nostrils. If the mute is hanging out, then it might be too big for your nose. And wow, surprisingly, it might be too big for my nose with the medium, just because you can see that it is hanging down a little bit. Okay, so we're going to actually try a small. Would not have guessed that. Let's see how the small works. So the small, and you can kind of contrast the size of these two. The small is in the one that I'm wiggling right now, and there's the medium that I tried. We're going to see how the small works. So same song and dance, you just shove it up your nose, and that fits pretty good. But I will say this, so I took a couple breaths with it in, and I felt like I got a little bit better expansion with the medium. But the interesting thing is if the mute feels loose or you want greater airflow, which of course, who doesn't want greater airflow, you can expand the loops by clicking the paddles outwards. You can adjust each side separately to achieve the best fit. So this has like a little lever, right? So you can see where my finger is, and on the thing, you could just expand that out. So it's like a click function that you can do on either side to increase the size of it so you can get greater expansion. Interesting. So I clicked it out all the way just to see what we get. And we're gonna go for it again with the small. And it looks like it fits pretty well. Interesting. The fit definitely on this is better. I don't know if I'm getting as good of expansion with the medium, so I'm going to just try the medium one more time just to make sure I had it fit correctly. Because the medium definitely goes up higher. To me, that feels right, more so than the smalls. Because I think the issue, folks, was with the small, it got up right where I needed it to be in terms of the bottom ridge or the loop, but it didn't feel like it was going far enough in the mid zone of the nostrils. That's what it looks like in right now. And I'm gonna see if I expand it a little bit, if that helps. Nice little clickers to ensure that that's the case. Ooh, wow, that's definitely gonna be big. And that's how it feels right now. And what we're gonna do next while I have this in is I'm gonna do a comparison. I will say subjectively, it's definitely easier to get air to go in through my nose. Feels a bit less labored. What I can't see up close is if I'm still getting that divot inward as I breathe in, because when that's happening, you're getting essentially a collapse of the nasal airway because there's a large negative pressure buildup, and you can't bring in as much airflow. So what we're going to do is a side-by-side comparison of me breathing nasally right now. As you can see in the video, it's a pretty substantial difference in terms of how much collapse there is. Or in the case with the mute, there isn't. You can see that my nose stays expanded the whole time, which is extremely desirable, because if I can have that, theoretically, I can intake more air in through my nose, which would make me less predisposed to mouth breathing, especially with all the good stuff that I'm doing currently to promote a good nasal breathing posture within my nose and my mouth. So we're gonna try this out, see how we do. I'm gonna see if we get any noticeable improvements in sleep quality. We'll see how I do exercising with these bad boys, and I'm gonna give them a solid 2 weeks of trying this out, and I'll report back to you, and we'll see what's crack-a-lackin'. I've been wearing the mute for quite some time now. And folks, I have a confession to make. I've extended this experiment out to 6 whole weeks of wearing the mute, not just while I'm sleeping, but pretty much with any activity. And I've had some pretty remarkable things happen to me the entire time that I've done that. I've worn this bad boy sleeping, hiking, playing sports like spike ball, working out, working on the computer, all types of stuff. And I've got some interesting changes that have happened with me throughout. First, you might be wondering, well, Zach, what is it like to wear the mute? What does the experience entail? And I'm glad you asked. You don't really feel it much when you have it in your nose, surprisingly. It can be like a little bit irritating on the bottom part of your nose, but it's actually incredibly comfortable when it's up there. And the crazy thing is the almost instantaneous change that you see when you breathe with this bad boy. So if I zoom into the camera right now, you can see how my nose collapses when I take a breath of air in. As soon as the mute is in, the collapse is gone. So we have to wonder, okay, Zach, that's all well and cool, but what effects did this have on you? The first thing I noticed is as soon as that is in, pretty much completely stop all mouth breathing. I would notice a lot of times while I was working on the computer or even just throughout the day, I'd catch myself with my mouth open, especially if I had eaten something that made me a little stuffy. As soon as that's in, nasal breathing is the norm and the standard, which is really cool because for me personally, nasal breathing has a lot of profound effects. I'm sure many of you are probably wondering, did it help my sleep at all? And I was measuring data on my Oura ring throughout, and sadly to say, there weren't any major objective changes that I could pinpoint to with putting the mute up my nose while I slept. Qualitatively, I would say that I felt like I was sleeping more hours, and I did wake up feeling a bit more refreshed, but there is a confounding variable at play. A couple weeks into my mute experiment, I did do some changes to my bedroom. Namely, I had some less hot sheets and blanket cover. And the other thing that I did that was really cool is I have this blackout film on my window that pretty much eliminates all lighting in my room. So I get it, I'm the worst scientist of all time, but your boy wants to sleep better. So jury is still out on if this really helps with sleep. The next question would be, does it stay in? For me, this has only fallen out of my nose one morning, and I noticed it when that did happen because I felt like I didn't sleep as good. But then again, we also have to wonder, am I associating, oh, this was out of my nose, I slept poorly? I will say that it's really important to make sure you have the best fitting one. I do have one of my Supreme clientele wearing one of the mutes, and his falls out all the time. So you want to make sure you have one that fits. So that's the story on sleep. What other benefits or not did I have while wearing the mute? One thing that I've been dealing with for a very long time is a lot of neck discomfort and tension. And I notice it mostly when I'm working at the computer for an extended period of time, as well as when I'm playing sports or working out really hard, especially running and hiking. So how was that impacted by wearing the mute? This was probably the biggest change that I have gotten from the mute and has made me a believer in this product. First, we'll talk about working at the computer. If I wear the mute in my nose, I notice mouth breathing is completely gone, and it seems as though neck tension has significantly reduced while I'm wearing it, which is really cool. Perhaps the biggest impact that wearing the mute has had on me is any type of physical activity. So for those of you who don't know, I am an avid spike ball player. I love playing with my folks at Elevate Sports Performance and Healthcare. We play weekly. And every time that I've played this wonderful sport, I would have tons of neck tension by the end of it. And then I put the mute in. And this was so cool. As soon as the mute was in, way more nasal breathing. I felt no neck tension for the first time ever. And I had been playing spike ball for months on end, once a week. So to just put that in my nose, better nasal breathe and reducing neck tension to allow me to play spike ball at a higher level was totally worth the price of admission. And that's not all, folks. That's not the only time that I noticed this. I noticed it while I was working out, and I especially noticed it while running. Usually when I run, I get tired, start to mouth breathe more, my neck is kicking up to try to pull more air in, and it was crazy. I was doing sprints with the mute in, and it was just like I couldn't get my heart rate up high enough, and the thing that fatigued me was my legs, nothing else, which was really cool. The other time that I noticed an immense benefit from wearing the mute was with hiking. So when I hike, I have pretty good endurance, but what will happen is, of course, as I get tired, I mouth breathe more, and I noticed that I would get congested big time as I was going up hills, among other things. I hiked with the mute a couple times, and folks, it was dramatic how much my energy increased, and the really cool thing was I wasn't feeling any of the congestion that I normally would while I was wearing the mute. I mean, it was absolutely mind-blowing to me how effective the mute was for helping me nasal breathe and reducing my neck tension with physical activity. The only downside is, well, I kind of look like I have a nose piercing in when I'm wearing it, which, unfortunately I can't do that at my job. But otherwise, it has been a really cool experience to be wearing the mute. So as you might surmise, your boy Big Z is a big fan of the mute, especially if you are someone, as you breathe in, you get nasal collapse and you want to do something to reduce that. I strongly encourage that you try the $16 experiment and see how it feels. Try it with sleeping, try it with physical activity. I bet you will notice a big difference. Now, if there's any limitation that I've noticed about the mute is as soon as I take this out of my nose, things are back to normal. So this really is a temporary solution to the problem of having nasal collapse. So then you might wonder, what, Zach, will you do to get a permanent solution to allowing the nose to expand when you breathe in and breathe out? Stay tuned.